know what you're talking about. You telling me that I'm not a boxing fan. Dude, you're a guy who's taking this all very personal because you realize your sport is getting swallowed. It's gonna go away.
What up? It's your boy back again. Marlo knows basketball and Marlo knows boxing. Back at y'all with another one. We just witnessed a couple of huge fights this past weekend. Two of the biggest fights of the year popularity-wise. And that was Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic and also Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. As y'all saw in the clip from 2007, Joe Rogan, I got to stick it to him again. He once again, back in 2007, said boxing was dead and it was going to go away. And that there was no more money in boxing. Everybody's going to go to MMA. Yeah, Joe, you make a lot of money because you're the king of podcasts. But UFC fighters don't make more than boxers. They never have and they never will. And this past weekend was just another example of that. You say boxing is going to go away. Boxers continue to make way more money than UFC fighters. Jon Jones is supposed to be the GOAT. He's supposed to be the greatest of all time. Stipe was supposed to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. This is supposed to be one of the UFC's biggest fights that they've ever had. But the paydays don't show it. Jon Jones is supposed to be the GOAT. He's supposed to be the greatest of all time. And this is supposed to be one of his biggest career-defining moments. And he only got paid $6.2 million for it. $6.2 million. And he's the greatest of all time. Stipe Miocic, who was supposed to be the greatest heavyweight of all time, just made just over $4 million. But Joe Rogan says that UFC is more big time than boxing. Why the pay don't say that? By contrast to what Stipe and Jon Jones just made, Mike Tyson just made over $20 million. $20 million for his fight against Jake Paul. And Jake Paul himself made $40 million. So when you combine Stipe Miocic payday and Jon Jones payday, it's around $10 million. When you combine Mike Tyson payday and Jake Paul's payday for their fight, it's around $60 million. So these two guys that had this boxing match just made 6 times more money than the GOAT of all, the greatest of all time, Jon Jones, fighting the greatest heavyweight of all time in Stipe Miocic. So you tell me, Dana White, you tell me, Joe Rogan, in what world is MMA or the UFC bigger than boxing when the boxers are making 10 times the pay that the top UFC fighters are making? We've been seeing this storyline play out for a couple years now. That's why Jon Jones sat out so long before he fought Cyril Gane. He sat out for 3 or 4 years and then just sat out another 2 years before he fought Stipe. That's because he's constantly having to try to beg Dana White for money. Dana White's worth almost $500 million, but he don't pay his fighters nothing compared to what he making. Jon Jones begged Dana White for Deontay Wilder money. He said, pay me like Deontay Wilder's getting paid. And Dana White thought it was the most absurd, ridiculous thing he had ever heard. So I don't want to hear MMA fans or UFC fans or Dana White or Joe Rogan or anybody talking about the UFC and comparing it to boxing and saying it's bigger than boxing, because it has never been bigger than boxing, and it never will be bigger than boxing. When the UFC becomes bigger than boxing, then their top fighters' paydays will reflect it.
You say it's absurd. He says it never even got discussed.
I'll quote him and what he had said to my lawyer. Told my lawyer he wants what Deontay Wilder was paid.
What was that? I don't follow boxing prices. Anybody know? 25 million?
I think it was 30 million. I think it was 30 million.
About today's
was what Deontay Wilder was paid. No, go ahead.
About today's weigh-in, no, everybody was wearing face masks, everybody involved, which was